Beneath the moonlit haze of the Midian desert, a flickering fire illuminates an untold story where faith and grace intertwine. Zeruiah, a lesser-known woman of the Bible, sister of King David, stands quietly beyond her brother's radiant glory. Mother to mighty warriors like Joab, Abishai, and Asahel, she wields no sword, yet her resolute heart shapes a kingdom's destiny. Can a silent mother alter the course of history? Zeruiah's faith journey, tucked within Scripture's pages, testifies to the power of sacrifice and unwavering trust. Though the Bible doesn't name her husband, her sons are called sons of Zeruiah, a rare honor hinting at her profound influence. In the shadows of Israel's turbulent rise, she raises warriors fiercely loyal to David, men who fight to establish God's chosen king. Her faith, forged in unseen trials, perhaps widowhood or rejection, mirrors the desert's harsh beauty, where God's grace shines brightest in the obscure. Join us to explore this inspiring tale, where God's favor glows through hidden corners. Subscribe to our channel to step into the world of courageous women, where faith works wonders. Under the gentle dawn stretching across the Midian desert, a simple tent stands silent in the stillness, yet the air within hums with unspoken tension. Zeruiah, a biblical woman with a steadfast gaze, kneels by a small fire, her hands clasped in quiet prayer. Sister to King David, she shuns the spotlight of the throne, choosing the shadow of sacrifice where faith and wisdom intertwine, guiding the fate of a family and a kingdom. Outside, the desert wind whispers of approaching trials, heralding the specter of war. Zeruiah is no warrior wielding a sword, but her heart is a battlefield of loyalty and love. She is the mother of 3 sons, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel, fierce warriors ready to shed blood for David's kingdom. Joab, her eldest, burns with relentless fire, his eyes sharp as a blade, standing by David through every battle. Abishai, bold and loyal, strikes fear into enemies. Asahel, swift as the wind, carries a fate soon to be tinged with tragedy. These sons are not just Zeruiah's pride, but proof of her wisdom in raising them amid the razor's edge of war. David, Zeruiah's brother, now wears the crown, but his throne is as unsteady as it appears grand. Israel is steeped in conflict, and David's family is not spared its fractures. Abigail, Zeruiah and David's sister, bears her own story, mother to Amasa, a son destined to stand on opposing sides in the coming political storm. The bond between Zeruiah and Abigail, though rooted in kinship, is tested by divergent choices and loyalties. In the tent, Zeruiah senses unease, as if God is sending a sign, a warning that her family will face trials harsher than the desert sun. As the first light of dawn slips through the tent's seams, Zeruiah lifts her head, her eyes gleaming with resolve. She seeks neither glory nor power, but her heart blazes with a desire to protect her family and the kingdom David leads. In that quiet moment, she prays, asking God for wisdom to guide her sons through darkening days. Her prayer doesn't echo like war trumpets, but it runs deep, fierce, like an underground river nourishing life in the desert. Zeruiah knows her faith, though silent, is the bedrock for her sons to stand firm against the storm. The Midian desert, with its endless dunes, seems to whisper Zeruiah's story, a woman unsung in tales of triumph, yet the wellspring of strength for those she loves. She understands that war isn't just fought on battlefields, but in the soul where loyalty, sacrifice, and faith are tested. David, burdened by the crown, faces enemies both foreign and domestic. Joab, with unwavering loyalty, will do anything to protect his uncle. But Zeruiah, with a mother's wisdom, sees that a kingdom isn't built solely on blood and steel, but on moments of prayer, quiet decisions, and unshakable trust in God's grace. As sunlight floods the tent, Zeruiah rises, her slender shoulders steady. She doesn't yet know the sorrow and loss the coming days will bring, or that her family will be torn by loyalty and betrayal. But in this moment, she feels a divine strength, as if God whispers that her mission, though unrecognized by the world, will leave an eternal mark. Zeruiah, a woman of faith, steps from the tent, ready to face the trials ahead, carrying hope that her wisdom and trust will guide her loved ones through the darkness. Zeruiah's story is more than a mother's journey in wartime. It's a reminder for us today that even in history's shadows, women like her can shape the world through faith and resolve. Her path is just beginning, with greater challenges awaiting, where loyalty and divine justice will collide, leaving timeless lessons for us all. Under the pitch-black sky, enveloping Jerusalem's palace, flickering torches barely dispel the war-tightened grip on the city's heart. In cold stone corridors, Zeruiah, a woman of faith, moves silently, her small frame bearing the weight of a fracturing family. Tonight, Israel faces not only external foes, but is torn by wounds from its own kin. Absalom, King David's son, has risen in rebellion, his heart ablaze with ambition, his eyes glinting with betrayal. In a ruthless move, Absalom appoints Amasa, son of Zeruiah's sister Abigail, as the army commander, ousting Joab, Zeruiah's eldest son, from power. The decree lands like a sharp blade, severing the fragile threads binding David's family. Zeruiah stands by a stone window, gazing at the city shrouded in darkness, her heart twisting in pain. Joab, fiercely loyal to David, is now displaced by his own cousin. Amasa, Abigail's son, shares their blood, but stands under the banner of revolt. The bond between Zeruiah and Abigail, once woven by sisterly love, wavers under opposing choices. Zeruiah harbors no bitterness, but the sting of division seeps into every breath. She knows Absalom's rebellion isn't just a battle for the throne. It's a spiritual trial where loyalty and divine justice collide in the shadows. Each step Absalom takes feels like a defiance of God, and Zeruiah senses a holy wrath stirring, like a silent storm gathering over the desert. In a small room, a candle's faint glow lights Zeruiah's face, its lines telling of a mother accustomed to sacrifice. She kneels, her trembling hands clasped, her silent prayer rising like a cool stream in a parched desert. Lord, guide me. Show me your path, she whispers in her heart, seeking solace amid the tempest within. Zeruiah doesn't pray for victory or glory, but for wisdom to steer Joab and her sons through the divide between loyalty and vengeance. She knows Joab's fiery heart could be consumed by hatred's darkness. Yet she trusts that faith, like an unquenchable torch, will illuminate the way for those she loves. Jerusalem's palace, once a symbol of unity, now hosts an invisible battlefield of loyalty. David, Zeruiah's brother, sits on the throne, his eyes heavy with the pain of a father betrayed by his son. Absalom, with flowing hair and a charismatic voice, has swayed the people's hearts. But Zeruiah sees the fragility in his ambition. She recalls younger days under the Midian sky, when Abigail and David were her closest kin. Now, those memories are mere shadows, obscured by war's smoke and choices that divide blood. Amasa, leading under Absalom, embodies this rift, but Zeruiah refuses to let her heart drown in resentment. She chooses prayer, chooses faith, trusting divine justice will shine, even in the darkest turning points. As distant war trumpets sound, Zeruiah rises, her slender shoulders steadfast. She knows Joab, with his unshakable loyalty, won't easily swallow this humiliation. She fears his fire could burn not just foes, but the remnants of their family. Yet she feels a greater strength, as if God's hand rests on her heart, whispering that this painful moment is part of a grander plan. She steps from the room, the candle's light still burning, a symbol of her unyielding faith. Under Jerusalem's sky, where war and betrayal lurk, Zeruiah carries hope that her prayers will be the wind guiding her family through the storm. Zeruiah's story reminds us that even in the darkest hours, when family and loyalty are tested, faith can light the way. For Americans today, her journey calls us to reflect on life's turning points, where we choose between hatred and forgiveness, vengeance and justice. Zeruiah, the Bible's quiet woman, stands at a fateful crossroads, and her choices will echo through generations, leaving lessons on the power of faith and resolve against the world's wrath. As the first dawn pierced the hazy smoke over the battlefield near Jerusalem, the blast of war horns mingled with the rhythmic march of soldiers, pulsing like the heartbeat of a kingdom fighting to survive. Amid the chaos of smoke and fire, Zeruiah, a biblical woman with a steadfast heart, stood quietly on a hillside, her eyes heavy with sorrow yet ablaze with faith, and she bore no sword, wore no armor, but her presence was a wind stirring the souls of warriors, especially Joab, her eldest son, leading David's army with unyielding courage. Under the dawn's orange-streaked sky, Zeruiah carried a silent mission: to keep her family's flame of loyalty burning through the storm of betrayal. Days earlier, in the shadows of Jerusalem's palace, Zeruiah had seen pain in Joab's eyes when Absalom, his nephew, appointed Amasa, Abigail's son, as commander, stripping Joab of his role. The humiliation burned like fire in Joab's heart, and Zeruiah knew it could lead him to hatred, destroying not just enemies, but what remained of their family. In a quiet moment before war erupted, she called Joab to her side, her gaze gentle yet resolute. Without many words, Zeruiah placed her hand on his shoulder, as if passing on the strength of faith she guarded for years. She reminded him that loyalty to David, the kingdom, and God must outweigh personal grudges. Her counsel, though silent, was a torch lighting Joab's path through war's darkness. Now on the battlefield, Joab stood at the army's head, his voice cutting through the smoke, rallying David's soldiers forward. Beside him was Abishai, his brother, a fierce warrior with equally fierce loyalty. Both, nurtured by Zeruiah's wisdom and faith, were pillars of the kingdom in this dark hour. Each swing of their swords, each step, testified to the years Zeruiah had prayed and sacrificed to shape her sons into defenders of David's throne. But Zeruiah, watching from the hill, sought no glory in their victories. She only prayed they'd guard their hearts against the lure of vengeance and the shadow of pride. As the sun climbed, its first rays pierced the smoke, and Zeruiah knelt among barren rocks, hands clasped in prayer. She didn't ask for victory or enemy blood, but for strength for Joab and Abishai to rise above the test of loyalty. In that moment, a divine light seemed to sweep the battlefield, soft as God's breath touching Zeruiah's heart. She lifted her head, sensing a greater presence, as if God affirmed that her quiet faith was the kingdom's foundation. That light not only strengthened Zeruiah, but seemed to reach Joab, fueling his leadership with superhuman courage. On the battlefield, Joab and Abishai fought tirelessly, their movements a blend of bravery and loyalty. They battled not just for David, but for the values Zeruiah instilled: justice, faith, and sacrifice. Under Joab's command, David's army gained ground, pushing back Absalom's forces. But Zeruiah, from afar, knew today's victory was only the beginning. That greater tests awaited where Joab's loyalty would be tried by blood ties. Her actions, silent counsel, ceaseless prayer, had indirectly saved the kingdom, like an underground stream nourishing life in a desert. As the smoke cleared, Zeruiah rose, her eyes gleaming with hope, tinged with concern. She knew today's triumph was just a start, that tougher trials loomed where Joab's loyalty would face his own kin. But in that moment, she felt the power of faith, the strength of a biblical woman who stood firm in the storm. Zeruiah's story reminds American audiences today that courage isn't always a battlefield roar, but sometimes a quiet prayer, a choice to sacrifice for those you love. Her journey, though unsung, is a flame of inspiration, illuminating lessons of faith and loyalty that endure any trial. Under a blood-red sunset, the forest of Ephraim lay heavy with the air of war, the scent of smoke clinging to every tree. Victory over Absalom belonged to David, but joy was shrouded by the shadow of a new tragedy. Zeruiah, the biblical woman whose heart once burned with faith, stood silently at the forest's edge, her eyes blurred with unspoken pain. Joab, her eldest boy, had just struck a fatal blow to Amasa, son of her sister Abigail. 2 Samuel 20:10. That cold, ruthless act pierced Zeruiah's heart like a sword, stirring a storm of doubt. Did divine justice still stand with her family, or had she erred in trusting Joab's loyalty? The forest, with its swaying branches, seemed to whisper tales of betrayal and sacrifice. Hours earlier, Zeruiah had stood on a hillside praying for Joab and Abishai to rise above war's trials. Her prayers had fueled their victory for David's army, but now that triumph was stained with sorrow. Amasa, once under Absalom's banner, had returned to serve David, carrying hopes of family reconciliation. But Joab, with embers of resentment still burning from being replaced by Amasa, chose a path of blood. As Amasa fell, his blood soaked the earth, and Zeruiah felt a deeper fracture in their already broken family. Abigail, her sister, had lost her only son, and Zeruiah couldn't meet her eyes without guilt. In the fading sunset, Zeruiah walked among the trees, her steps heavy as if bearing the kingdom's weight. She wondered if she had sown the seeds of this tragedy. Raising Joab, she taught him loyalty and courage. But had she neglected forgiveness? Divine justice, which she always trusted, now seemed distant, obscured by her son's brutal act. Kneeling beneath an ancient tree, her trembling hands clasped, Zeruiah's prayer shifted from seeking strength to pleading for clarity. Lord, where is your justice? Where did I go wrong? She closed her eyes, letting the forest's darkness envelop her, seeking a sign. a glimmer in the storm of her heart. That night, in fitful sleep by the forest edge, Zeruiah dreamed of a gentle light, like an unquenchable flame, guiding her through a misty path. A soft voice, not judging but comforting, resonated as if God touched her heart. The light revealed redemption, not through victory or vengeance, but through quiet forgiveness and sacrifice. Zeruiah saw David, her brother, on his throne. The kingdom strengthened not just by Joab's sword, but by her prayers. By moments she chose grace over resentment. Awakening, the sunset's glow had yielded to moonlight, and Zeruiah felt a fragile peace. As if God had answered, divine justice doesn't always roar in battle, but sometimes whispers in forgiveness. Zeruiah rose, her frail shoulders no longer trembling. She knew Joab's act left an unhealable wound in their family, but she chose not to drown in blame. Instead, she chose forgiveness, for Joab and for herself, for any mistakes she might have made. Her quiet sacrifices, from prayers in Midian's tents to doubts in Ephraim's forest, were the bedrock of David's kingdom. She sought no recognition, no place in history, but her heart knew this pivotal moment, choosing grace over judgment, would echo through generations. The silent trees of Ephraim bore witness to Zeruiah's spiritual journey. She stepped from the forest, carrying faith that redemption wasn't a prize for victors, but a gift for those daring to forgive amid pain. For American audiences today, Zeruiah's story reminds us that divine justice sometimes asks us to release hatred, choose the hard path of forgiveness, and trust God can turn wounds into light. Her journey isn't over, but in this critical moment, she left a legacy of faith and redemption, illuminating the way for those who dare walk in darkness. Beneath the gentle moonlight cloaking the Midian desert, Zeruiah's simple tent stood quietly, a small lamp in the vast darkness. Tonight, no war horn sounded, no battlefield smoke lingered. Only the whispering wind carried a breath of peace. Zeruiah, the biblical woman whose heart bore countless sorrows, sat by a small fire, her eyes reflecting a profound stillness. After turbulent years, from Jerusalem's radiant palace to Ephraim's blood-stained forest, she had found God's grace, a gift not won through resounding victories, but through silent sacrifices. In this moment, Zeruiah was more than Joab's mother or David's sister. She was a symbol of courage and faith, an unquenchable flame. The moonlight slipped through the tent seams, as if God tenderly touched Zeruiah's heart, soothing wounds left by war and betrayal. She recalled pivotal moments, Absalom's rebellion tearing their family apart, Joab, with fierce loyalty, leading David's army to protect the throne, and Joab, in a blaze of anger, killing Amasa, leaving an unhealable rift between Zeruiah and her sister Abigail. Each was a trial, a storm testing her faith, yet she chose to stand firm, to pray, to forgive. In Ephraim's forest, a dream of divine light taught her that redemption lay not in fixing the past, but in trusting God's greater plan, where even mistakes could become foundations for grace. Closing her eyes, Zeruiah pictured David, her brother, vivid as memory. She saw him on his throne, crown gleaming, eyes heavy with a king's burden. David's kingdom stood strong, not only through Joab's sword or Abishai's bravery, but through Zeruiah's silent prayers, through moments she chose faith over resentment. She never stood on battlefields, never heard crowds' cheers, but her heart knew her sacrifices helped keep Israel from crumbling. Every prayer, tear, and choice to forgive was a stone in the kingdom's foundation, a legacy unwritten in history, but etched forever in God's plan. The flickering fire mirrored Zeruiah's journey, from prayers in Midian's tents, through anguished nights in Jerusalem's palace, to doubts in Ephraim's forest. She learned courage wasn't just facing enemies, but forgiving when heartbroken, sacrificing when unseen. The redemption she found wasn't worldly recognition, but peace from God's grace, a gift for those who dare to trust, love, and let go. Opening her eyes, the moonlight seemed to smile, and Zeruiah felt renewed strength, as if God whispered that her quiet mission had shifted history's course. Zeruiah's story reminds us that faith and courage can shape not just a kingdom, but generations beyond. For American audiences today, her journey carries a modern resonance. Second chances aren't just rewards for victors, but gifts for those who forgive, sacrifice, and trust in light amid darkness. Zeruiah teaches that even in life's shadows, quiet acts, a prayer, a choice to release hatred, can spark timeless change. She proves God's grace never forsakes steadfast hearts, even when the world doesn't see. As the moonlight faded, Zeruiah rose, her slight figure radiant like an unextinguished flame. She didn't know what the future held, but she trusted God placed her in this moment, with this mission, to be a lamp for her family and kingdom. Zeruiah's story doesn't end in Midian's tent, but lives on in those who hear it. Let her journey inspire you, dear American audience, to share the story, subscribe to the channel, and spread the message of faith, courage, and grace. For as Zeruiah showed, even the quietest sacrifices can change the world.